Ladies and gentlemen, thank you
so
much
before you start, may I ask everybody to mute themselves? So
yeah.
Please, everybody, mute themselves so we don't have any background.
Right. Well, dear colleagues, thank you for joining this month's virtual presentation. And we look forward to see you again in the future for our future events.
Senin sesin kapalı değil.
We also wanted to just to let you who is online here. You will see the other gentleman with the red ribbon is my colleague on the Order Mondial Committee, Tal Sunderland Cohen. And we have Paulo, our presenter for today's session, Paulo Russell-Pinto. Paulo, thank you very much for being there for us today. And I would also like to thank the Bailly Delegate of Portugal. His name is also Paulo, but Paulo Amado. So please, if he's not online, please convey our thanks to him for being part of this event.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we go on, I would like to remind you that if you have not already joined the Order Mondial OMGDGlobal on the social media, please do that, like and join so that you can get all the information regarding our events. I will now leave the floor to my colleague, Tal, who is going to introduce what's going to happen during the session here today. Tal, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. This is part of a series of webinars and Zoom meetings that we do about wine and spirits around the world. Every Sunday, at the end of each month, we host one of the Bailliages experts to talk about their national drink or something about their wines. And we had a few people already lecture, so we are building kind of ongoing events on Zoom, and more people are joining us. So just do not forget, every Sunday at the end of each month, at around 5 o'clock London time, 7 o'clock Israel time, we have this beautiful webinar. But don't worry, if you miss it, you can always go into our channel on the YouTube, and we have the OMGD Global. You can see all these webinars on the YouTube channel. We have also an Instagram and Facebook. Just look for OMGD Global, OMGD Global, as you hear it, and you can find us on social media. Please tweet, please respond, please like us and hug us and send whatever you want. So now I want to introduce our main speaker for today. Paulo Russell-Pinto is the marketing manager at Porto and Douro Wine Institute, a very important institute. Porto and Douro wines taster at the tasting chamber of the IVDP and wine educator. So every time a port wine should be tasted, he's the guy that tastes the wine. He also has a level 3 advanced certificate in the WSET Wine and Spirit Education Trust School from London, and he's a taster at the Concours Mondial de Vin in Brussels. And Paulo is also the head at jury at the Gastronomy, the wine competition in Portugal. So many things we have. So again, please, ladies and gentlemen, the people that just join us, please mute yourself, because sometimes even though you are not the main speakers, we can hear your background. So if you can mute yourself. And now, Paulo, the floor is yours.
Tal, Mohammed, thank you very much for having me here today. As you said, I'm a member of the Douro Wines Institute Tasting Chamber. The IVDP, as I will say from now on, is the ruling body of port production. So it works similarly as le Conseil interprofessionnel of any wine region in France. I hope in the next minutes to guide you and to be with you in a journey through port wine production, port wine history, why port wine is considered one of the best wines in the world, why it has so many features, and where it is produced in the Douro. So let's start by seeing a small video on how everything starts.
Ei, mä voin olla autossa istua vieressä. Äiti ajaa.
Okay. Okay. You can see the presentation?
Yes, it's on.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mohammed.
Can you increase the volume a little bit because we can't hardly hear you?
Okay. Okay, and I'll speak a little bit like this. I think it's better for all. Why? I think one of the first features that we have to discuss about port is one thing that is dear to all of us, which is the sense of appellation. The notion that the quality of a product can be linked to a certain area, a geographical area, a land. And although this is mostly perceived in wines, all of us have experiences of appellations throughout Europe and nowadays outside Europe that linked the quality of a product, its way of doing, the tradition, the people that produce it to a certain area and a name. And this is very important if we think about Bordeaux wine, Champagne, Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, or Prosciutto di Parma, or even feta, wines, wine, cheeses, meats, with appellations that are extremely important. And why do I say this? Why this is important? Because port is the first appellation in the world. It is the first time where we have the notion of an appellation of origin, which dated to this page that you have, the first page of the law that created the Douro demarcated region. It is the first time in history, when we look into history and into legal documents, where we have three things: an area, a set of laws that regulate that area, and an entity that controls the laws. Are these three rules, these three parts of a triangle that now exists in all appellation of origin. So the first time, and now if you think about Bordeaux or Champagne or Napa, even Napa Valley wines, you have these 3 points of the triangle: the area, the set of rules, and the entity that control those rules. Let's think about Champagne, not to give the port example. I could ask you if you were able to answer, but all of you are in mute. I would ask you if you can produce sparkling wine, or can you produce wine in Champagne out of Sauvignon Blanc? Actually, the answer is yes, you can. But can you call it Champagne? No, you can't, because there is a set of rules in the area of Champagne that says that Champagne is only produced with mainly Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir, and Chardonnay. So it's a rule given by tradition, given by the history, and it's controlled by the Comité Interprofessionnel des Vins Champagne, the CIVC. So is this triangle which came into perfection for the first time in 1756 in the Douro. And this is very important for us because, as you or some of you may know, we were the pioneers on the establishment of the appellation of origin. This is also very interesting because if we look back, port wine is already been the Douro produces wine for millennia. We have Roman vestige of grapes and grape seeds into lagars that exist in the in areas of the Douro that were settled by the Romans. Then we have, during the creation of Portugal, a huge importance by the Cistercian monks that brought on the 13th century and the 12th and the 13th century wine with them when they also create settlements in the upper part of the Douro, in the northeast of Portugal, that was very wild 1,000 years ago. And actually, the first time that we have the port reference was in 1678 in the customs, in the Porto Harbor customs, where the wines that were being shipped to England for the first time received the name port. Then we have the establishment of the first appellation. The region grew because we had some rapids and some canyons in the middle of the Douro that were destroyed by hand, and this allowed the Douro Valley to grow up in terms of plantation. And then we had lots of important dates that I have here in this slide that are very important to establish Douro as it is today. What is interesting to see, and you can find in this picture, is that actually Douro is not a land. Douro is a mountain, as you see in the picture, and this mountain is done out of stones. And alongside the mountain, you have some bushes. You don't even have trees. There are no woods in the Douro. Everything is stone and small bushes. And what is amazing and what is absolutely dramatic is that man had to establish, have to create this landscape, or to transform throughout mainly the last 300 years, have to transform this landscape that we see here in one of those rapids that were destroyed in the middle of the 18th century into this. A complete a landscape that is completely transformed by man in order for man or for mankind to take some economy out of that. And it is now all these steps, almost 35,000 kilometers of stone walls and ladders that created or create nowadays the establishment of port production conditions. This is very interesting because as you can see, and you've seen in the video, and you can see now in these pictures, the Douro is mountains. And actually we are the most mountainous wine region in the world in extent. We can say, or you can also establish that Valais in Switzerland or Mosel in Germany, they are also very hilly, but actually they are not as hilly or as mountainous in terms of wine region, with the extension of the Douro, which is almost 150 years of 150 kilometers, sorry, of extension since the beginning of the region up to the border with Spain. And all of these images that we've seen here, we've seen in the video, and we are going to see later on. The Douro is established in the northeast of Portugal, the dark area that you see in the left-hand image, that starts 100 kilometers from the coast and ends in the border with Spain. And what is interesting about this is that actually, although we are only 100 kilometers from the Atlantic Ocean, the climate is not Atlantic. The climate is continental. Why? Because here on the right-hand side of the image, on Baixo Corgo, we have a range of mountains that allow us to protect the entry of moisture and of the sea winds that are very moist, and the temperature is very mild, and actually these winds crash into the mountains, and it rains on one side of the mountains and keep the other side dry. So all the Douro is actually and continental or pre-continental climate, very similar to the climate that we have in the center of Spain, in Ribera del Duero and Rioja, which means very hot summers and very cold winters with some rain in the winter, but very, very dry summers also. And this starts mildly in the left side of the region, the Baixo Corgo, and then on the last third, which is the bigger, in Douro Superior, it's already a very pronounced continental climate with very dry summers, hot and very cold and somewhat rainy winters.
Paulo, sorry
Yes?
to interrupt you, but if you can, as you are the host, there is a lot of background noise. If you can mute the people that are you'll see on the participant, if you can mute them, you as a host can do that. Just mute them, and then we can hear you loud and clear. Otherwise,
okay,
there is a lot of background.
Okay, I'm just looking for that.
So just on the participant, you see the people that are not muting themselves. You'll see like Monica Muller and Maltem
Okay.
Konk. So
Just one second.
Yes, you can mute them. If it's take too long, don't worry about it. But just a lot of background
okay,
noise.
I'm doing that. Okay. I'm also a little bit in a windy place, so let's hope that. I think they are all muted now.
Also, please increase the volume of your voice a little bit also,
Okay.
so that everybody can hear you clearly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going back to the presentation. No, not all. Okay, so here we have two good examples on how mountainous the region can be. And on the other side, how wine planting developed through the years. On the left-hand side, we have the pre-phylloxera and pre-World War I vineyards, small rows of vineyards with a lot of ladders or stone walls called sucalcos. And on the other side, we have much more density of planting, which was the plantations that were created after First World War, mainly with the help of dynamite. So all the ladders, all the slopes all the stone walls were created on the left-hand side of it. This vineyard is still running. It's still, the production is still working with the stone walls that were created 130, 150 years ago. And we were able to reuse all of this. On the other side, already some technology, some science in order to create more density of planting. After World War and until the 80s, all the plantations were done this way, much more rows of planting, less stone walls. So this picture from part of Quinta do Noval and Quinta da Corte and Quinta do Noval, yes, it's a good example of that. And here we have a broad image, wildlands image of the new plantings. Here, the difference between this and the previous ones is that we don't have stone walls. All those stone walls were hand-picked, and then most of it, and then with the use of TNT. But nowadays we use laser beams in order to create the most accurate possible of slopes and ladders on the margin of the river, in order to, at the end, create a balance between the density of plantation of the first type of plantation and the second one. So this is much more balanced, and it's now, this picture is good because we can see how plantation and how wines are produced, grapes are produced nowadays. We have in the Douro 116 grape varieties approved to produce port and to produce Douro still wines. The varieties are the same if you are producing port or if you are producing still wines from the Douro that we call Douro appellation wines. These are the main five, the most widely planted. Some of you already know about them. Touriga Nacional for freshness and fruit and floral aromas, Tinto Cão for structure, Touriga Franca also for color and fruit, Tinta Roriz for structure and longevity. Tinta Roriz is the Tempranillo in Spain, and Tinta Barroca also for structure. We have some varieties that are the same varieties that exist in the Douro. Let me see. I was trying here to put more people on mute. But I can't. Okay. Just 1 second. Okay. I think we are okay now. Just doing a small round around you. I was saying that the wine varieties, most of the wine varieties are native of the Iberian Peninsula. We have the idea that all grape varieties come from Central Asia. Actually, Porto University and some Portuguese universities are doing studies that led us to conclude that there are several wild grape varieties that came into wine production throughout the last 2,000 years. Also some in France and in northern Italy. So not all the grape varieties come from Central Asia and Georgia. We also have some grape varieties that are native from the Iberian Peninsula that were domesticated by the people, the Celts and all the pre-Roman that also lived here. Nevertheless, we have some grape varieties that are, of course, the main grape varieties or other grape varieties from Europe. We have, for instance, Tinta Francisca is Mourvèdre. Tinta Roriz, as I said, it's Tempranillo in Spain. We have Boal, which is Semillon. We have Syria, which is Listran that also exists in Spain. We have Alvarinho. We have Muscat Tigran on the white grape varieties. So there are a lot of Gouveia, which is Godello, the Spanish grape also. But what is interesting, now I have to sum up until now. What is interesting is that, or what makes wine and port wine so special until now and Douro is that we have all of these features that come together during harvest. The climate, the highly mountainous profile of the region that give us thousands of terroirs. Because if you look into this picture here, you can imagine that a grape variety that is on the other side of the hill, or a vineyard that is on the other side of the hill that only catches sun in the morning, will have a completely different profile from a vineyard that is catching sun in the afternoon or in the end of the day. And the vineyard that is planted near the railroad with much more access to water will have a different profile from a vineyard that is planted uphill. Downhill, we have the red varieties. Uphill, we have, because it's more fresh and more windy, we have the white varieties looking for acidity in the top of the mountains. All of these features, and if you add 16 grape varieties, all of these will create thousands of hues, of tonalities, of features that will allow the winemaker and the blender at the end of the day after harvest to create the wine that they want. And this is very, very important to us. Then the production. We will have a Q&A at the end. So if you want to keep some questions to the end, then Tal and I will manage all the questions that you have. Usually I say that making port wine is the most easiest thing in the world, although we have these magnificent wines inside the bottles that we drink. Actually, what we have is that port wine, it's very easy to make. You stomp some grapes, you add, you let them create a must, and then you add wine spirits. It's as easy as this. And it only takes 2 days, which is very interesting. If you think about Bordeaux, and if you want to have a dry red wine, we can think about Bordeaux as an example. You need the wines to be in the tanks or in the vats for, I would say, 3 weeks. The ratio of sugar is steadily decreasing, but it takes, after a big shoot, a big fall on the quantity of sugar of the grapes, then at the end for 2 weeks, you keep the wine fermenting in the stems or in the skins for a long time in order for you to have the less quantity of sugar possible. But we don't need that on port wine. Actually, in port, what we want, it's the wine to be still to have some sweetness. So actually, after 2-3 days, we have to stop because we want the wines to be sweet and the right amount of sweetness. We need to stop the fermentation. How do we do this? We add wine spirits. Actually, we are going to drown the yeasts. As you all know, yeasts don't work after 15 degrees, 16 degrees. Some of already special yeasts and prepared in lab yeasts can last for a little bit longer in alcohol, but most of the yeasts don't last as much, along 14, 15 degrees. So as we want the yeasts to stop, we are going to drown them. That's the colloquial term that I use. Actually, we kill them. We are going to drown the yeasts in what? In more alcohol for them, for force them to stop. And so after, when we have the right amount of sugar, usually 120 grams of sugar per liter. That's our average quantity of sugar in all port wines. Of course, I will go into that when we talk about pairings and service in a couple of minutes. But actually, when we have the right amount of sugar, we stop the fermentation, adding more wine spirit, always 77%, pure alcohol with no color, no smell. Always at 77%. Why no color and no smell and no taste? Because we don't want, sometimes we have some liqueurs that we've done with Armagnac and all of that stuff, but we don't want any flavors to be parted from the spirit into the port wine. And because of that, I was just trying, and because of that, we have pure wine spirits, completely neutral as it can be. And the IVDP, the Port Wine Institute, also controls the spirit that the companies and the houses buy in order to produce ports. This is very important. So what we have, our main challenge during harvest is how can we take the most out of the grapes when we only have 2 days to do it? Because when the grapes arrive into the tanks, into the wineries, until the moment the port wine is made for that year, it only takes 48 hours, 72 hours. So we run always following the best color and taking the most out of the sugars and the components that we want to make the port as rich as we want. What do we do? What you have in the 2 main pictures. We have to take the color very quickly. How do we do it? We stomp the grape with our feet. It's the most easy in terms of science, but not easy if you go inside. I don't know if some of you that's here that are members of the Brotherhood, the Port Wine Brotherhood already, or others, already been in the Douro during harvest and went into the lagar, the stone tanks, the square stone tanks, the lagars, in order to stomp the grapes, to foot trod. Our main objective is to écraser, to smash the skins in order to take most of the color content and also all the flavors that are in the skins and in the pulp. That's what we need. We only have 2 or 3 days to do it. That's why we go inside the lagar for 2 or 3 hours in this image that you have on the top of the slide, all in what we call the military stands. Only one of us is screaming, hey, ho, hey, ho. Well, slower than this, of course. And in order to be, and this will also help to start the fermentation, because our body is, of course, at 36.5 degrees of temperature, and will help the fermentation to start, will help the yeasts to start fermentation. So what we have in the lower picture on your right side, we have what we call robotic lagars. Lagar is the square tank name in Portuguese, lagar, L-A-G-A-R. That's where my colleagues are on the top picture. Then we have the robotic lagars. Are we putting the robotic lagars in order to make better wine? No. What happened is the same thing that happened in other agro industries in Europe. We don't have enough manpower. And because of that, we have to find ways to replicate the man's feet and the human feet, not woman, but human, and woman also, of course, but human's feet in order to replicate the best that the feet and the temperature of the body gives us on the stone tanks. And that's why we have the robotic lagars. 2 pneumatic feet that you see in the picture. Those white dots are preheated silicons that when they go down, they are pneumatic, and when the pressure is exactly as the pressure of the woman's feet, they come up again, and they go alone, and they don't complain. They don't have to go to the bathroom during the military or the liberty. So actually it's very effective as long as it replicates. We don't want to make better wines. We want to make the best wines, okay? That's what we have here. Aging or producing, fortifying, aging. So, as I told you, it's very easy to produce port. Kidding. But the main challenge for the winemaker comes at the end of the harvest. So the wines are stored all in these big vats that you see in the picture. And we let the wines to sleep during winter in the Douro because it's very cold, as I told you. The coldness allows the wines to precipitate, so all the dust will precipitate very quickly and go to the lower part of the vat, and the wine cleans itself mostly. Of course, that sometimes we have to filter it, but the wine cleans itself naturally. That's what happened 200 years ago, 100 years ago. We didn't have any filters, so we used temperature in order to help filtration, natural filtration. And in springtime, the winemaker will have to make one decision. Or he will rack the wines into the small vats, wood vats that you see also on the picture, or he is going to keep the wines in big vats or stainless steel. And this, or on a third hypothesis to immediately bottle the wines. So we have keep the wine in big vats, wood or stainless steel. The wines will not age, they will keep the red fruits. Or we can put the wine in small vats. The wine in small vats will age very quickly because it reacts to oxygen. Wood is porous, and oxygen will oxygen will pass in through the pores of the wood in and out very slowly. The wines will age very quickly. They will become brown or gold. And it's this brownish and goldish color that creates one category of port, which is the townies. That we have here, port that age in small wood vats under the categories of reserve, around 7 years in wood, 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, which are blends of a mix of wines of years that will make this an average of each of these, and colheita. But if the wines are kept in the big vats that we see on the picture also, or stainless steel, the wines will not lose their color. They will keep the color, they will keep the fruit, the dark fruit, and they will keep the structure. And because the color is still very dark, it will maintain the ruby color. And that's why the wines are called rubies. So here we have two styles on our red ports. The townies if they age in wood, the rubies if they age in big vats with no oxygen. So actually we are playing with the oxygenation or reduction environments in order to create profiles on ports. And that's what we do throughout the next spring and throughout decades after the wine is stored after the production. The rubies have the categories of reserve, LBV, and vintage. That's our jewel of the club. Just okay. She's very good. There is someone here I cannot mute. I don't know why.
Monica Muller.
Monica, yeah, it's Monica. Okay. So tawnies and rubies. Of course, we have the whites, the white ports, and because we are 250 years old, 260 years old, but who's counting? Of course, we have dozens of categories. On white wines, we have two types of classification through the sugar content, the very sweet to the dry, the very sweet called lágrima, which means tear in Portuguese, because of the tears that creates with the excess of sugar, it creates tears in the glass, and we call it lágrima, tear. It's around 235 grams of sugar per liter. So to 1/5 of each bottle is pure sugar. And we have the extra dry, which is only 35 grams of sugar per liter. Okay, so we have a range of medium sweet, a little bit like Madeira, medium dry, medium sweet, very dry, extra dry, or very sweet. But those are the whites.
Honey, bunny, what are you doing on the table? Huh?
Okay.
What are you doing on the
Monica, if you are hearing us, you have to mute your... I don't have it, sorry. Okay, so let's go into something that I think it's very sensible to all of you, as you are all members of the Ordre Mondial des Gourmets Dégustateurs and the Chaîne des Restaurateurs, which is pairing, serving temperatures.
Honey.
We have to be aware that... Sorry, let me just go back. There is one thing that is very, very important to us, which is port is sweet, as I told you throughout the production, and is high in alcohol. So I think the most important thing is to recognize that if you drink a sweet drink, an alcoholic drink at room temperature, the wine will be flavy and interesting. And of course, that's 20 years ago, if I would say that the perfect place of a port wine should be in the fridge, I would be killed by heresy by all the people that work in the port wine trade. Thankfully, we changed that a lot in the past years. And we work closely and we are very sensible to temperatures. As I said, port wine is sweet. It's always sweet, even if it says dry in the label. The dry in the label has 50 grams of sugar per liter, so it's completely sweet. The thing is that it's drier than the other ports. So we have to put them on the fridge. Usually I say that the best place to keep port wines at home is the door of the fridge, because every time in the morning when you open the fridge, when you're going for the milk in the morning, you see the port wine and you remember, okay, later on I will drink a glass of port. So we find a moment to drink port, which is also used to be a challenge. But I think the most important thing here is the temperature. And I would say that we should treat port wine, if it's white, as a white wine, if it's a ruby as a red wine, if it's a tawny as a dessert wine. So at an intermediate temperature. One other thing also very important is that port wine is so versatile and so diverse in all of these categories that you've seen before, that pairs with a lot of things. And this is very important for us because white ports, as they are, they have a little bit of sweetness. They go very well, for instance, as with smoked salmon, with a little bit of black pepper or lemon, because lemon has the acidity. Herring, also very important with their somewhat mustard sauces. It works very well for appetizers, and also cream soups with cream on the base, some finger food as appetizers. It works very well, and it should be served in, I would say, in a white wine glass, no problem whatsoever, and at the temperature of a white wine, I would say, directly from the fridge, 5-7 degrees. It will eat up in the glass, of course, which is normal. If we think about rubies, they are, as I said, dark colored, structured, and tannic. So we have to be very cautious when pairing and with the temperatures, because they are structured and tannic. They won't support, as any other red wine, they don't support low temperatures. Otherwise, the tongue will be completely dry. So what we have to do is that we have to serve it at 16 to 18 in the table, at service in a room, in a restaurant room. Of course, that if you serve it at 18 or 16, in 5 minutes it will be at 20. So we are all aware of that in the room the temperature, of course, will come up to the room temperature. So serve it slightly chilled or at a lower temperature, and of course with food that will support the tannic and the structure. So I would say everything that has dark chocolate and bitter chocolate will pair very well. Blue cheeses, which are also bitter. Red fruit desserts, of course, everything that has the same red fruits as the ruby ports will pair very well. And game and roasted meat that has sauces, because sometimes the pairing comes through the sauce and not from the protein, which is allows you, in order to make some surprise to clients or to friends, in order to serve a wine into an intense meat that could be paired with a wine that has some slightly sweetness. And finally, the townies, probably more suited to desserts because they have caramel. I wrote as long as they age from 10 to 40-year-olds, they go into dry fruits to curry, tobacco leaf, cigar box. It's very common aromas on the 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds, and caramel, coffee, and dry fruits on the 10s and 20s. So we have a wide range of flavors and aromas on tawny ports. Puff pastry works very well because of the greasiness, also the fattiness, even if it's sour or sweet, with Roquefort cheese, for instance, or with some cooked apple. Hard cow cheeses such as Parmigiano Reggiano, Conte cheese, Gouda, they work perfectly with townies. Everything that has cinnamon or nuts, almonds, goes very well, as long as probably one of the perfect pairings, which is crème brûlée, that works very well with a 10 or a 20-year-old, or even some. I don't know how many French are in this presentation, but the 20-year-old, a chilled 20-year-old also works very well with pâtés and foie gras as a replacement to Sauterne or other kind of wines, because usually ports are more acidic, so they compensate a little bit better this approach. Here, playing with the temperature is more difficult because we need an average temperature. Of course, that if you have an average temperature cellar, okay, 12 degrees, 14 degrees, or to take the wine out of the fridge 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before serving, because we need a temperature in between a white and a ruby port, because the wines are mild. The wines are more subtle, so they can be served chilled, but we have to play a little bit better with the serving temperatures. Finally, one question that is also very common that people ask me is, how do I know if a port is suited to be drunk immediately or to can be kept in more time in a cellar or in a bar? Usually we have a hint by we have a hint through the corks, the stoppers. If we have the bar top, the plastic cap, we know that the wine was made to be open and closed again. Okay, which means usually they're for tonies. Tonies are wines that created. They were created with the existence of oxygen, so they won't lose any flavors or any aromas. As long as you open it and you close it again, you open it, close it again, the wine will be great for 2 or 3 months in exact same conditions. But as you see here in one of the pictures, the LBV Porto, here we have a ruby wine that never had contact with oxygen. So they will behave, rubies and vintages will behave as a regular red wine. 2-3 days. It's not a question of how you have to drink it in 24 hours. Of course, you need to decant it because usually vintage ports, they are not filtrated. So they are not filtered. So you have to decant it, but nevertheless, they will last exactly as a red wine. 2-3 days. If you put it on the fridge, probably 1 or 2 days more, but you need a corkscrew to take the cork out, which means that you must treat the wine as a regular red wine or white wine, okay? With the bar tops, usually tonies and white wines, I emphasize open, serve a little bit, reclose, reopen, close again, open, close again. For 2 or 3 months, the wines will be in perfect conditions. So this is a good hint when you don't know which kind of category you're helping, okay? Finally, the port wine glass. I have here one sentence that is very important for me and for all of you. Port is not liqueur. So don't use liquor glasses, this small stuff in which you drink a sip and you are already done. Use at least, if you don't have a Riedel or a shot Wiesel or a Spiegelau port wine glass, use a regular white wine glass. It will be perfect. You drink the right amount, always in moderation, of course, but you will put the port wine not as a liqueur, but the wine will be perceived as a real wine, as it should be. A wine that, as I said, is one of the best wines in the world and should be treated like that. So not in a small glass behind all those glasses where you are drinking the Bordeaux and the Burgundy and the Riesling, and then there is a small glass on the back where you are going to pour the port at the end. No, use a glass that will enhance and create and will bring to port the category that he deserves, okay? And I would say that's it. We can open for questions. Tal, this is only to finish a small example of all the categories that from the past 200 years were created in the port business. Thank you very much. Let me just open you. I have to, yeah, okay. So just 1 second. I want to allow you to.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time for questions, if you like. Thank you so much, Paulo. I would like if you can make me a host, please, so I can make some background noises.
I will.
Quieter.
I will. Just 1 second.
Yes.
Okay. Just 1 second.
Oh, it's Muhammad is the host. Muhammad, can you please make me the host at the moment? Thank you. Right.
Are you there?
Muhammad,
Okay.
you're still the host.
No, Paulo is the host.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if we have any questions, I'm sure some of you have questions. You can now unmute yourself. Now is the time to unmute yourself and join us live. Thank you again, Paulo.
I might have a question.
Please, wait.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Paulo, for an inspirational talk. We all love port wine very much and do our best to spread the word that this is the king of wines. But I do have a question to you because port wine is, of course, one important sweet fortified wine. And you talk brilliantly about how we can compose that with a menu and maybe in a little bit of a different way than our grandparents taught us. But could you say a few words about how port wine, modern port wine, compares to the other famous fortified wine of the world? What is the character, the strength that we see in a port wine compared to a Madeira or Commanderia or Vin doux Naturel or of overseas coffee products? What is the unique selling points for port, apart from history?
Well, history is a big bunch of it, as it is Marsala we have to be aware that one of the biggest challenge right now is that sweet and fortified wines are not fashionable because of calories, because of drink and drive, of course. This is one of our main challenge. And actually we went into a second, this happened in the last 20 years, and now we are people that work sommeliers and in restaurants are starting also to perceive port wine as a product that they can re-show again as something that probably was almost disappearing from the lists, the wine lists, and then they returned. Nevertheless, port never compromised quality in these last years. Sorry. That could have happened with other fortified wines. And actually, I think the best example of that is Madeira. Also, Marsala is also one of the examples, but Madeira is more close to me because at a certain point, Madeira was only used for sauces. And this is a huge problem for people that produce wine. And Madeira was able to reinvent itself in order to create a niche product. So now Madeiras are more expensive. Of course, that you still find Madeiras in supermarkets to be used as a source ingredients. But our main challenge is not to be perceived as an ingredient for sauces. And actually, Marsala and Madeira have this for the past 20 years. Xerez, not that much, Harry. But I think what differentiates in port from any other sweet wines in the world, any other, even Rutherglen, is the ability of go for the second glass. And I don't say this in an emotional point of view. We are able to go to the second glass because port wine is much more balanced in acidity and sweetness. Acidity gives some freshness to the ports that you can only find probably in Madeira. Although Madeira then doesn't have the fruit because it's cooked, you know, it has the part of production in which is exaggeratedly oxygenated. Port doesn't have that. So port is a good balance. And usually when you enjoy a glass of port, you go for the second glass. And I think this doesn't happen with the other liquor wines or fortified wines that you have in the market right now. They are very good. Usually they are a punch in your mouth when you drink it, but then they become very tiring and dense and you don't go to the second glass. So I think that's acidity and the balance with sugar that makes this, that only port has. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you, Sved. Any more, ladies and gentlemen?
Okay.
Yes, Richard. Just unmute yourself so we can hear you.
We hear a lot about global warming and climate change. I was reading yesterday about Bordeaux region and how they're looking at 7 new grape varieties to take account of the effects on the harvests and the effects on the grape varieties that are going to be used in the future for Bordeaux wines. What is the likely effect that will have on the Douro Valley and port production? Are you looking at perhaps introducing new grape varieties and or heat tolerant varieties perhaps?
It's a good question. Do you know the new 7 grape varieties of the Bordeaux? You know which varieties are they?
Well, I know that Touriga Nacional is one of them, yes.
Exactly. So we have a lot of Touriga Nacional in the Douro. There is also Touriga Nacional planted in other regions in Portugal, but actually it started in Douro. It's native of the Douro. And Bordeaux selected Touriga Nacional considering climate change and global warmth. That is very interesting. And the other was Alvarinho also, which is, this gives us a hint on how Touriga Nacional could be prepared for global warming. Nevertheless, we have the same challenges as any other wine region. We have data that concludes us that since the 70s, the average temperature is steadily increasing in the Douro for the past 30 years. I think the main advantage that we have is that when we have to move, because as you've seen in the images that I showed up and in the video, Douro is so hilly that every time you go up 100 meters, the average temperature in the year lowers 1 degree Celsius. So if considering that you have mountains in the Douro with 500 meters, if you plant vineyards 300 meters uphill, you will have the same conditions that you have with 3 degrees centigrade less in 1 year, which is massive. That's that's the main advantage that we have. It's when we will consider in 20, 30 years, we don't know, when we'll start considering moving some varieties in order to have the same profiles of the wine, we won't have to move them very far away. That's one of the events. Nevertheless, we had a congress a week ago in the Douro, and everybody, it's impossible to get away from global warming and climate change and the effect that has on our vineyards. Probably the main advantage is that we have so many microclimates that we will probably be more prone to adapt than other wine regions that are completely flat, I would say.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Ilse?
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have probably a double question because my colleague Henri is there with you as well. We are from Belgium and we have our youth low-no alcohol, which is getting its trend. So my first question was, do you see an evolution on your dry wines from Douro that increases? And secondly, maybe I'm going to swear now, but it's just a question so we can answer it as well. How do you feel as an afternoon drink for Porto Tonic, which we see with our youngsters?
I'll start with the last. Actually, now we have cans Portonic in Portonic created by the trade. So I think they also look at the port and tonic right away as a pop drink, trying to gather or to bring youngsters to the consumption of port. We have, and as someone was saying, I don't know if it was Richard or Sven, we have a huge challenge, which is to put younger people drinking port, because every time we think about drinking, young people drink alcohol. Okay, that's it's true. They drink in the manner that we want them to drink. Probably not. We don't want binge drinking. We want a moderate consumption, but we have to create conditions in order to put more younger audiences, I don't say 15 to 25, but 25 up, to remember that port exists. For that, we need pop drinks, we need mixology and bartending, and we need conditions that would allow them to perceive port more easily. So I am completely, and putting port wine on the fridge is also one strategy of showing that wine can be fresh and drinkable. So I think that's one of our main goals, and I am completely in favor of hitting younger audiences, because otherwise it will always be the grandfather's drink, and we will always have a problem of every time an old man dies, port consumption decreases, and we don't want that. We don't want that to happen. The other question was the white wines, right, and the amount of alcohol.
Yeah, about maybe that you have more export or more appreciations of the dry wines of Douro now.
Yeah. We cannot directly establish a relation between the fall of ports and the rise of Douro wines. Actually, Douro passed through a period of with a lot of science, very good raw materials, so very good grapes that come from port production that were not used. So actually, Douro is now a good, fashionable or a good quality region because it was established on port. But there is no direct relation between the fall of port sales. For you to have an idea, in 2000, port sales accounted for 400 million euros, and this year is 365. So we lost 35 million euros in port production, but Douro compensated immediately all of that, but not with a direct relation.
Okay.
So I think they come from the same area, but they have to be marketed differently, although we can always say that port is the locomotive of the region.
Thank you, Paulo. Very interesting for us.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else? Questions? Thinking? Paulo is with us.
Yeah, he's making a question.
Yeah, actually, it's not a question, but
okay.
It's so first of all, I wanted to thank you for the so clear and impressive presentation that really made me feel as if I were in the Douro area and I had a week visit at the wineries, and I really loved it. And I must say that one of the things that I love most is the wines, not only the port, but the white and the rosé and the red wine. Wow, it's something so fresh, so different from what we are used to, that I really, really loved it. And regarding the port, well, I pre-adapted your recommendation. I have it in my fridge. So every youngster asks me, wow, when can I have it? So thank you very, very much.
And I'm glad that you do that already. If everybody here starts to put port wine on the fridge, my day will be done for sure.
Excellent. Any more questions? Everybody's a bit muted, so I can
ask another Portuguese. Fatima, you are from there. Can you tell us something?
Hello, Mohammed. How are you?
Fine.
Nice to hear you again. Well, actually, a few years ago, I have a friend who told I didn't like Porto wine because it was too much sweet for me. And a friend just said, please put this on the fridge and try it, and then tell me. Since then, I'm drinking Porto wine because it's so different. The difference
yes.
of the taste is amazing. So I was a young who didn't drink Porto wine, and now I'm an old woman who drink port wine.
You're still young. You're still young, Fatima.
We are still young people drinking port wine. Yeah, we have to.
Right. Okay. Okay. If there's no other questions, first of all, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I just want to again remind you to look for us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. Just look for us for OMGDGlobal. That's our hashtag OMGDGlobal. This recording of the Zoom meeting will be, I think, in a few days. You can find it there. And then you can really learn again. Also, the presentation of Paulo will be on our international website of the Chaîne de Rotisseur. I don't know how many went there. It's kind of a new and improved website, international, so it's easy to find things there. Go to the MGD page, and you can see many things there. Next month on Sunday at the end of the month, we'll have an amazing presentation of champagne, and we have the best sommelier in France that won, I think, 1 month ago as the best sommelier in month of France. Is going to do the introduction for champagne next month. So please join us, and I'm sure it's going to be as interesting as today's Paulo presentation. I hope to see you all in real life. I hope to see you all in the next General Assembly. Whoever comes to the General Assembly in Lyon, I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity. Until then, if we don't have any more questions, I will like to thank you again and say good night.
Yeah.
Yes,
Tal
Mohammed.
Mohammed, thank you for the opportunity. And
not close now, because first of all, I need to close the session by thanking Paulo and the Pays Delegate of Portugal, Paulo Amado. We also have Fatima, who is also a national board member in the Chaîne Portugal, for contributing to this month's event. I would like to thank each and everyone who joined us online today, and we hope to see you again in the future events. As Tal said, that our next event is actually interesting, and it's called The Magic of Champagne. So actually the title of the event speaks for itself. So please join, encourage your colleagues in the Chaîne to join as well. Let's see what we will hear about the magic of Champagne, for those also who know Champagne very well and enjoy. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I don't know if you have anything, Tal, to add.
Just be safe, be healthy, and vive la Chaîne, vive l'ordre mondial.
Vive la Chaîne, vive l'ordre mondial. Thank you so much, and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you for all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.